training session, so if you're wanting the paper or oral presentation, you'll want to go across the hall over to the Lubbock room. There's free pizza outside if you haven't grabbed any already. We have some handouts over here as you walk in, so make sure to grab one of those. My name is Dan Ferguson. I'm the graduate assistant working in the Center for Undergraduate Research. This is Garrett Moore. He is a second-year graduate student doing biochemistry, so he'll be talking about kind of give you some pointers on biochemistry, chemistry research, and we'll talk for a little bit on the presentation too. This is our last training session for the semester, so if you wanted to pick up on any of the other ones, we're going to be hosting similar training sessions next semester, so just kind of stay tuned, like us on Facebook, stay up to date, those sorts of things. The conference, the Texas Tech Undergraduate Research Conference is coming up in April, so make sure to submit your abstract for that. The deadline for it is for March 17th. I'd recommend submitting it at least 2 weeks beforehand, so if you have any trouble filling out, don't have the requirements, don't know how to operate it, or computer's not working, you can always make sure you get it in on time. So, all right, so Garrett here will start off with the presentation, and then we'll switch it over to me in just a little bit.
What I have to do next?
Okay.
All right, yeah, like you said, my name is Garrett Moore. I'm a second-year graduate student in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry, and I guess I'm going to go over some of the basics on, what is the purpose of creating a poster, or why go to a conference. So I'll kind of go over a few things with that, some pointers. I think he's going to go into some of the details later. How many people have actually done research and created a poster? Okay, so a couple people. Is everyone doing research right now? Too much? Okay. All right, so here's kind of a diagram showing on the left what your research supposedly looks like. Theoretically, we'd all like it to look like that from the start, but it really doesn't. Research kind of starts out when you do it on the right. It's kind of a big clump. It's kind of a mess. The point of research is trying to discover and learn new things, and in the process of that, you're supposed to put it together and kind of help explain it, make sense of all the data. So on the left is kind of what it should look like afterwards, sometimes. Okay, so the purpose of a poster. A couple basic things, generally you want to share your research with the community. It's always good to go to conferences to learn different information, what other people are doing, kind of broaden your knowledge. You might learn something that'll help you with whatever you're doing with your research. And it kind of allows you to own your own research. You put in a lot of work doing this, and it kind of gives you a chance to go there and say, I did this, this is my hard work. It kind of lets you, it kind of shows that the work paid off kind of thing. You get to put it together, you get to make sense of everything. And then also networking is a big thing for going to conferences. I guess I kind of want to make this a little bit more interactive. What else would be a purpose of going to a conference? Like it's nice to go, you make a poster, you kind of own your own research, you put everything together, but generally, why would you go to a conference? Does anybody have any suggestions? Yeah?
Just whatever people are researching.
Okay. So continued education, kind of broaden your knowledge and learn something else. What else? Any suggestions?
Promote your ideas.
Promote your ideas. Okay. What about long-term maybe gains from it? Okay. Well, I would think that one of the big things you can do through going to a conference, there's a lot of networking. You meet new people. One important thing is collaborations, possible collaborations. You go to these conferences to learn different things. Obviously, a big thing is a career. We all want one of those eventually. So going to these conferences, it gives you a chance to meet people, to kind of learn from other people who are doing the same things in the same field of work, and giving you a chance to meet long-term relationships with other people. It gives you a chance to know people down the road. If you want to ever get into a certain field, somebody you can link up and do research. It's building connections, building a network, having people you can hook up with and do some cool research, whatever you decide to do. And obviously learn about the research process. Going to these conferences, it gives you a chance to learn from people who have success on the tree. So you can kind of go meet people who have been doing this for a long time. It gives you a chance to see, what did you do to get to where you're at? You get to ask those kind of questions, meet the people that you want their type of success later on in the future. Okay, so some thoughts before you start. That's probably one of the biggest things before you jump into doing a poster, is you want to put some considerations behind it. what conference are you presenting at? That's probably one of the biggest things. In our lab, we do a lot of different things from organic chemistry to molecular biology to analytical chemistry, and some of our research kind of entails a little bit of all that. Now, if we go to a conference, we're not probably going to explain all those different things in detail. Say we go to an organic chemistry conference, they're probably not going to want to learn about molecular biology. So if we spend a lot of time putting that sort of detail into our poster, it's not going to be appealing to anybody. They're going to say, why are you here? You know, I don't get what you're doing. You know, that type of thing. So you want to make sure you know what conference you're going to, who your audience is. That's probably one of the biggest things. It's kind of like, I was kind of thinking about like what to say to kind of help everyone out with this. And when you make a poster and you go to a conference, it's almost kind of like marketing. It's kind of like sales or selling. You're trying to appeal to a certain type of crowd of people. So if we go to an organic chemistry conference, we're probably going to want to put things in there geared to, obviously, organic chemistry, but maybe going back to like the networking part. You know, trying to meet collaborations, trying to hook up with people who do research. Maybe we can put stuff in there, knowing what type of say if there's certain research groups going there that we want to hook up with and do research and collaborations, we might want to put stuff in our poster about how maybe we can help them. Maybe some cool ideas we're doing that might be appealing to them. So there's other little long-term effects that you want to kind of take into consideration. Are you required to place your abstract on your poster? Some of these different conferences, you got to know the details. Some people want you to put certain things in there. You got to make sure you know kind of the fine print. Otherwise, they might, you might put in all this work and they say, sorry, you can't present. So that's kind of a big deal to a lot of these conferences. What size requirements do your poster have to meet? Once again, it's just one of those fine print details. If you don't know what they require, they may not be nice and say, sorry, you have to go back home. You spend a couple grand traveling, and that's probably not a good thing to do. So make an outline. One of the things you want to start with is kind of break it down. So obviously, if we go back, what conference are we presenting at? Who's our audience? We got to take that into consideration. And then we want to make that kind of based off of what we're going to present. So we want to use a title that we submit to this conference. So we start with the big picture. What do we want to present to the audience there? What do we want to make appealing to the crowd of people? And then start with that, and then you work your way down through an outline. Obviously, introduction, materials and methods, experimental procedures, stuff like that, and then you kind of fill in the gaps between there. So what key points did you mention in your abstract? So obviously, whatever you submit to your abstract, you want to pull from there. Obviously, going back to knowing what conference you're at. If it's an organic chemistry one, I'm not going to talk about molecular biology too much, or whatever else. So you want to make sure that you put certain things from your research that's going to appeal to that crowd at the conference. So you want to use these points to create an outline, and you want to know what to say in each one. A lot of these posters, I think the toughest thing is that whenever I don't know if anyone has done like a paper, done research and you've been published in a paper with somebody. Anyone? No? Okay. So the paper allows you to be a lot more detailed about your research. People can go there and read exactly what you did, exact procedures, and get all the details. But when you make a poster, you're only limited on space, right? There's only so much room. You can't put your whole paper on there, or else it's going to be like really fine print. It's like at the end of those commercials, they tell you all the, the fine print stuff. So you got to be aware of that. So sections for a scientific poster is just kind of like writing a paper. You're going to have a title, abstract, introduction, hypothesis, and so on. But once again, the biggest thing I would say to make sure is that you put certain key points in there that's targeted for the conference, or targeted towards the audience. I think what else? I mean, that's really the biggest deal, just making sure what conference you're going to, who you're trying to appeal to. It's kind of like selling yourself, selling your research. There's a lot more that goes into putting on the conference besides just showing up and presenting your research. Obviously you want to appeal to certain people to have a possible career, to meet people that you can maybe go work for down the road. Say you're interested in a certain, say if you want to continue your career doing research and there's people there that you would like to go work for. Obviously you want to put together certain things that's going to maybe be more appealing to that. So that's one thing you can also take into consideration is maybe figuring out who's going to be there. You can link up, get those collaborations, that networking part. Did you want to go to the humanities part?
Sure.
Okay. So I hope that kind of helps.
All right, so how many people here are doing humanities or social sciences research? All right. Usually humanities research, in particular like arts, philosophy, history, those sorts of things, they'll do a paper or oral presentation. If you fall into the kind of sciencey side of that or social sciences, you can do a poster as well. But there aren't really any guidelines on what you should do for your layout, like there was for the sciences, introduction, methodology, all that stuff. So things to keep in mind is that your faculty mentor is going to be your greatest asset. So talk to your faculty mentor about what things you should include in humanities poster or social sciences poster. Some information that I've found on it is you want to make sure you include the background information, methodology, discussion, and acknowledgements. Acknowledgements are pretty much key on almost anything you present, anything you talk about. You want to make sure that you mention the people that have helped you out, the people who have funded your group, your research in particular maybe. But there's really not any guidelines for humanities posters. It falls into anything related to the scientific method, testing a hypothesis, collecting data, analyzing that data. You can pull more from the scientific poster outline here. So to get into the finer details of what should be included on the poster, you want to make sure that you include the title. And like Garrett said earlier, it should be concise and it should be geared towards your audience, the conference attendees, the people who are running the conference, the people you want to notice your poster. And make sure if it's a long title that's describing something really detailed and you're using the names of a molecule or something, that you make sure that it doesn't take up the whole page trying to just spell out what it is you're talking about. One of our scholars was here last night talking about his research and showing us his poster, and the poster that he has probably 15 words in its title, because what he's talking about uses these detailed words for each topic and to narrow it down to exactly what he's talking about. So just keep that in mind, and you want to make sure that you define the words if you're using acronyms in it. You don't have to define them in the title, just somewhere on the paper you should be mentioning what these acronyms mean. You also need to make sure that it can be seen from far away, more than 5 feet, and I'll talk about the 5 feet rule later today, but you want to make sure that people can see it from across the room so they're not wandering around for your poster. Yeah, and make sure, again, scientific names are italicized if you're in chemistry or biology or anything like that. I haven't had to deal with it, but I'm a math major. Yes, you want to make sure you use sans serif fonts. The serif fonts are slightly more difficult to read from afar. So it's just the little end pieces there that you want to make sure you take off. And that's going to be for all the text in your poster, not just the title. So you want to make sure that everything is consistent, you're not switching fonts back and forth. And make sure that they're all sans serif. And they don't, sans serif is a type of font, not necessarily like a specific kind. It's just a font without the little red marks there. Authorship, you want to make sure that you list all authors and institutions from which they're from. So if you're the first author and you have your professor that you're working with and then someone that you're collaborating with from another institution, you need to make sure you name which, all 3 of the professors or all 3 of the collaborators as well as the institutions that they're from. And that will go underneath your title, either centered or left justified or however you want to do it. Any graduate students that are also contributing, those are people you also need to mention. Postdocs as well, if you have postdocs in your field of study. And don't forget, it's important to discuss with your faculty member, which people to include. Some people may have helped out, but your professor may tell you that they should just be listed in acknowledgements, not be considered authors. So overall, to general design, some key things to remember is you do not want to use colored text. Stick to grayscale, black and white. That's it, pretty much. If you use colored text, it's a lot harder for the eye to read. It's like reading green text on a yellow background. It just clashes and is really painful to look at. Also make sure that you use attractive colors. You don't want to have lime green in a corner on one side and then orange on the other side. And you want to make sure that your poster is attractive to look at, because if it's not, people aren't going to want to look at it too long. Like Garrett had said, you want to make sure that you're marketing to your audience. It's essentially sales for your research and what you've been doing to get more people interested in it, to get more funding, to get job offers down the road, put your name out there. You want to make sure you use pictures effectively. Some people have used pictures as backgrounds for their poster. That can be quite challenging if you're trying to not make it clash with either white or black or any grayscale texts, and it makes it a little more difficult to read. But as long as you do it right, you can include a picture on the background. Pictures, figures, and graphs are going to be really important in your poster, and I'll talk about that here later. It's just important to make sure that you use them effectively and make sure you put relevant information on your poster. Backgrounds, like I said, you want to make sure that they're appealing to the eye. If you decide to use a picture of Texas Tech in the background of your poster, there's a lot of colors that could pop up in that picture, and you want to make sure that they're not going to conflict with any of your figures, any of your plots, or graphs, or any of the other pictures that you have included. You don't want it to be hard on the eyes and difficult to read. Your poster will be about, you can make it up to 4x4 for the undergraduate research conference that we're hosting this semester. So it can be quite intimidating to look at a 4x4 picture of whatever that you're talking about. If you're doing the decomposition of something, you don't want to put something rotting as the background of your poster here. Be careful with gradients. Sometimes they can be all right. A lot of times it's just a no-no. All these things I would recommend showing to other people while you're designing your poster. Show it to your friends, your family, your mentors. You can come by our office, have us look it over, do looking for spell checks or formatting errors, anything like that. That's what we're here for, to help you on your poster and anything you need for your research. Section headers, they should all match. Whatever that you do decide to make them look like, they need to all match so that the reader can follow what sections are talking about what. They don't get mixed up between the methodology and discussion sections. Or data sections, they need to be able to say, oh, this is materials and methods, and this is like I used the extra big flask that added 500 milliliters of steaming green liquid, blah, 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 blah. You need to make sure that it's clear that that is the materials and methods section, and it's not being confused with another section. Again, this all goes back to design, to making it as appealing as possible and easy to read. Pictures, graphs, and figures, these are all really important. You won't really want to have a lot of text on your poster. You're going to want to keep it mainly bullet points, simple to read, easy to follow. Have all your figures and graphs and pictures labeled correctly. You don't want to put a graph on your poster with no axis or no labels, axes labeled. There's a huge no-no, and they'll probably just dismiss you as not knowing what you're talking about. Relevant titles are really important. If you don't label your title any of your figures, no one's going to really know what in general the figure is. Even if it's referenced somewhere else in the paper to say this is what this figure is talking about, it needs to have a title so that people say, oh, I've done this type of plot before, or I've done this type of calculation, and they know what to relate it to. It's another way to draw people into the poster if they see something that they're familiar with, or some trend that they think would be nice to incorporate in their research, or things that may lead to useful findings. Make sure that you put units on all your graphs too. You may leave this out on the that mess of a picture that research actually is. You may just wind up making lots of graphs without correct units on it, because you're the one dealing with it, and you know what it's talking about. When it comes time to put it on a poster and talk to other people, make sure that they're included. Figures need to have relevant titles and captions. Make sure that people know by looking at the picture, they can see the caption and know exactly what it is. Has a short, detailed statement about what it's describing, what it's showing. And it's important not to overuse any of these. You don't want your entire poster to be just pictures. They need to be some text to explain it. You want to make sure that your poster and you balance each other out. You don't want your poster to be able to say everything without you, but you don't want it to be able to say nothing without you. You both need to complement each other in saying that together is when you'll give on the best presentation of your research. You need to also make sure that you avoid pixelation if you're using photos or plots or figures or anything like that. When you blow it up to 4x4, it may look just fine on your computer screen, but you need to make sure that it's the high enough quality that when they print it out, it's not going to be grainy. And you need to make it look attractive to the user or the reader. I'll talk about here in a minute about the sections that you should probably include the most relevant information in. Another thing that you can do to avoid pixelation is when you go to design your poster in PowerPoint or Adobe or whatever software you want to use, that you blow it up to actual size on your laptop and then step away from it and see if it looks pixelated or see if the title is large enough, all those sorts of things. So here's the main focus area graph that I was just talking about. You want to make sure that you include the most useful, important information in section 1 here. And this confused a lot of people last year because they weren't understanding what it is this picture was showing. So I overlaid it on top of a poster here, and you see the title here, and a lot of the graphs fall into section 1 here. And this is just to show you where the eye is naturally drawn to posters or a piece of paper when someone hands it to them. So in this case, you'd want to put your title, for instance, authors, main figures, all in this section area here. If you need to include an abstract, you'd also probably want to include the abstract at the top, as well as any introduction material that you need to do. Main findings at the end, those sorts of things. You kind of want to go in this order of 1, 2, 3, 4. If you run out of room in section 1 for the most relevant information, then you'll put it in section 2, section 3, and so forth. Section 4, though, should be specifically for acknowledgments, references, personal information about yourself, contact information. Nobody really looks at section 4 when they go to see what your research is. It's the last place they look. So if you want to put pertinent information, you don't want to put it in the last place of the look. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. So things to keep in mind, you want to make sure that your font is easy to read, it's easy to follow. It's not going to strain the eyes. Someone's not going to be up against your poster trying to see what it is that you've written. You want to make sure that you don't use more than 2 fonts. You can use a certain font for, say, your section headers, and then all the other text should be the same, even for the text underneath all your graphs and figures that you're using to describe what each figure, picture, graph is. Make sure that you define all your acronyms, like I said. You may be presenting at a conference where everyone knows what you're talking about. In that case, you may not want to include acronyms. If you're presenting at an analytical chemistry conference and you're presenting analytical chemistry and you're using analytical chemistry acronyms, then you don't really need to define those because everyone at the conference should know what those are. If they're weird acronyms that you've invented on your own, you need to define those. However, at the undergraduate research conference, not everyone's going to be an expert in the field that you're doing research in. So if you're presenting at the conference, make sure that you define all your acronyms. And then again, make sure that it flows from left to right, top to bottom with the figure before it. So font size, you want to make sure that your font can be read from 5 feet away. And that really depends on the size of your poster, how much room you have. If you go with the 4x4 poster, then you'll have more room to work with and you can make your title larger. But if you have some really complicated name for your poster, and you're not going to have enough room to put every piece of information that you need to put on there, you may need to shrink down your poster size or your title size or your text size. But the important thing is that you want it to be legible from at least 5 feet away. So if you're planning on doing a 3x3 and you can't fit anything on there, you should probably make a larger poster. And so for this here, you can read the top line. It's also, probably 10 feet across from corner to corner. So it kind of depends on, where you're presenting from. At 5 feet away from this here, I could probably make the text a lot smaller and not have to worry about it. Again, you'd want to blow up your PowerPoint slide to the actual size that it's going to be once it's printed, and then step away from the monitor to make sure that the text is big enough at 5 feet. Another thing to remember is that the reason you want to keep it at 5 feet is so that you don't have everyone crowding around your poster. Your poster needs to be visible to other people who may be interested in looking at it. You don't want 2 people at your poster and no one else be able to see what your figures are, see the title of your poster. So if you keep them at least 5 feet away comfortably and they can still read, that allows your research to be more visible. Some resources I would recommend looking into, and we'll send you an email out after this training session, probably tomorrow or the next day, with these links. But you want to check out Texas Tech Identity Guidelines. They provide all the figures or logos, double T's, seals, shields for every department of the university. Center for Undergraduate Research we could give to you, or you can contact Texas Tech Identity Guidelines. And those are things that you want to include in the acknowledgement section. Some departments, such as engineering, I know have some strict regulations on what they should include and what they shouldn't include on their posters from their department. They have pretty strict guidelines, as in the title section needs to be so many inches, needs to be black background, have a double T in the corner with the seal, and all those sorts of things. Other departments don't have any restrictions at all, except that you acknowledge them. So just keep that in mind. Again, double checking with your faculty mentor is going to be the best way to make sure that you're in compliance with your department. And then if you have any questions over what wording means at the, or what conference you're going to, check with your faculty mentor first, or you can check with us if it's at our conference, or email whoever's the contact for whatever conference you're presenting at. If you're presenting at the National Undergraduate Research Conference, how many people know what that is and are presenting? All right, so if you have any questions about that, we can probably help you out a little bit. If not, go ahead and email the contact for the National Undergraduate Research Conference. Poster templates are available at the TLPDC website, and we'll send this link to you as well. It's a great way to get started. I didn't design my poster from scratch. I used one of the TLPDC templates to get started, but mine was still Texas Tech oriented, Texas Tech colors. You don't have to do Texas Tech colors. I think a few of the examples on the back table there have non-Texas Tech colors. So just to give you an idea, you don't have to stick with red and black. The background of this figure here was one of the templates pulled off the website. I'm not sure if you can see that in the back, but it's just to give you an idea of what it looks like. It has some basic pictures in it that you can all delete and then fill in your own boxes and arrange it however you want. So for printing, we have three main sources on campus. The Health Sciences Center, Human Sciences is going to be the probably the cheapest way to do it. $5, but it's a low quality paper. So the paper on your handout is about as thick and as strong as the paper for these posters. If you want some higher quality, I would go to the architecture building, but you're going to pay for the quality, so it's kind of a trade-off. One thing you can do if you're not wanting to spend too much and you want your poster laminated is that you can print it off at the Human Sciences building and take it over to architecture to have them laminate it. Just go to the Human Sciences building or architecture main office and they'll show you where their printing office is and who to talk to and all that. The TLTC does offer one free poster per faculty member each I think it's year, per year. So if you talk to your faculty mentor and they don't plan on using it, they agree to, you can use theirs for free and you'll have your poster printed out for free. So on to presentation tips. Sometimes presenting can be a little nerve-wracking. I don't know if y'all can read this in the back, but it says same graph as last year, but now I have an additional dot. So research can be a little slow sometimes. You may not know what to talk about and be afraid that you're repeating yourself. But here are some tips on how to answer, I don't know, things you should keep in mind, bring to your conference, those sorts of things. Did you want to talk about just chemistry in general later? Or?
Okay.
keep in mind, make sure that you dress appropriately for the conference. The TTU Undergraduate Research Conference is going to be business casual. You can probably do business professional, be all right too, but some conferences are a little more laid back. I've been told that most geology or geophysics conferences are pretty laid back. You can be wearing khaki shorts and a t-shirt and fit right in. Other ones are going to be expecting you to wear a suit, so you just need to check these things out. Talk to your faculty mentor about what is expected at research conferences in your field. Shoes are another thing you want to make sure to consider. Girls, I've been told that high heels are not good to stand in for several hours, so I would not suggest wearing those. Just wear comfortable shoes. You're going to be on your feet the whole time. The conference is just a big empty area with poster boards up, so you'll be standing the entire time. Things you want to bring, make sure you bring your brain. That's probably pretty obvious, but sometimes people forget it. They'll show up and be like, I didn't prepare at all for this, what was I thinking? So make sure you prepare, bring your brain. You have been researching this for 6 months, a year, 2 years, so you should know what you're talking about. So just make sure that you bring yourself and you're prepared to talk about your research. Water is another really big thing that I have forgotten several times. When you start talking for 2 hours, 3 hours to small groups of people, it can be kind of give you dry mouth. So that just makes it more difficult to talk about something, and especially if you're nervous, it's going to make it worse. So make sure you bring a bottle of water, Gatorade, whatever it is that you want to drink. Make sure to bring out extra handouts of your poster or business cards. I've never brought business cards, but every time that I have presented at a conference, I wish I had. Business cards are a great way to give out your information really quickly to whoever expresses interest in your research so that they can contact you. If they've recommended references you should look into, it's a great way to contact them and say, can you send me the author and journal that it was published from? Extra handouts of your poster are also a good idea, even if it's just bullet points of what's covered. Main figures doesn't have to be the same layout as your poster. It's still a good idea to have some of those available so that the people interested in your research have something to draw on if you decide to email them later, or they have any questions or want to keep up to date with what your research is. And again, make sure that, sorry, I didn't mention this, but make sure that you have your presentation or your slide poster on a flash drive or email it to yourself, preferably both. If you are traveling to a conference for INCUR, for instance, and they lose your poster tube in the flight or while you're traveling, or you drop it in the water once you get there, you could be completely out of luck and not have anything to present. So a good thing to keep in mind is to keep a copy of it somewhere that you can get printed once you get there if necessary. So tips for presenting. Practicing is the most important tip I can give you. Go over your research. Present it in front of the mirror, present it to your friends, your family, your mentor, graduate students, postdocs in your office, research group, our Center for Undergraduate Research staff. Just the more you do it, the better, more comfortable you feel about talking. I was pretty nervous the first time I presented, and I mean, you're talking to people who know what it is that you're researching, and it was intimidating for me because I didn't like presenting my research even to my faculty mentor because he can ask you some question that you thought that you were supposed to have answered already and didn't know. But that's just something to keep in mind. The more you practice, the more comfortable you feel about it. Be confident. If you don't come across as confident during your presentation, as timid or not understanding what it is that you're saying, that'll really put off whoever's listening. They'll say, they didn't really do this research. Why are they here talking about it? Are you sure that you're the one who did this? So be confident. You did do the research. You have been working on it. You've been studying it for 6 months, a year, 2 years, and you should know what you're talking about. So practicing really helps with that too. Another thing to keep in mind is you want to have presentations of different lengths. Not everyone that comes up to your poster is going to be an expert in the field. So if you're talking about chemistry, not everyone who comes up to your poster at a general conference like the TTU Undergraduate Research Conference or the INCUR conference is going to know exactly what it is that you're talking about. When I went to INCUR as an undergraduate, I had several people come up who had no idea what I was talking about, but it looked interesting and they wanted to learn more. So, have different presentations ready to be at different levels of understanding of what you're researching. make sure to make eye contact. Don't just look at your feet the whole time or look at the ground. You need to make sure that the person talking to you, the person that you're talking to, knows that you're talking to them. And you're not just saying all this from memory and not engaging them or trying to make sure that they understand. You also want to make sure that you speak slowly and articulate. You may get nervous or you may get tired and decide that you're just going to run through the spiel. You've only got 30 minutes left. And that can make it more difficult for people to understand what you're saying, first of all, and then that makes it more difficult for people to understand what it is you're talking about. Defining technical jargon is another thing. Just like defining acronyms on your poster, you need to make sure that everyone you're talking to knows what a centrifuge is, or I don't know any more chemistry equipment. So more tips, make sure to practice. That is your biggest tool for being prepared. Your poster can be used as a guideline. You don't want to read from your poster directly. You want to use it as a guideline. So if you do get stumped or get stuck on a particular topic, or you forget where you were in your little talk, you can look at your poster real quickly and say, well, I was talking about this figure, so I know to move on to the next one, and now I know where I am. It's a great thing to maybe have as a metaphorically as a cane, but not necessarily a walker for your presentation, just to provide you some stability. Make sure that you engage them and show that you're excited. This can be quite difficult. The first couple times that I presented research, everyone, it was at the Center for Undergraduate Research and then at their conference. And both times they said that I didn't really seem excited about my research. And that really does help deliver your message, deliver how important it is that they be interested in your research and that you're good at doing research, because you're there to sell your ideas, sell the research that you've been doing. And if you don't seem enthusiastic about it, you're just going to be like, yeah, they didn't really seem motivated to do this, like it was just assigned to them and they had to do it. So make sure that you're excited. I mean, you have been working on this for a long time, and you should be excited if you've continued to work on it, especially if you're one of those people who've been doing research for 2 years on the same project. You should be excited about your research if you've been doing the same thing for 2 years. How to answer questions. One of the big things that people seem to have a problem with is how to answer I don't know. People will come up and ask you questions that are related to your research, but you hadn't looked into that yet, or you didn't know the answer to it, or they ask a question that you hadn't thought of, and you need to make sure that you don't come across as ignorant on the topic, just haven't looked into it yet type of attitude. So some really good things to keep in mind and have in your memory bank for these I don't know events is that's a really good question. I will look into that in the future. Or I didn't come across that in my research, but if you leave me your information, I'll get back to you. And again, this is a great way to pull on those business cards to show that you're professional. And the business cards really help back up that statement. Is that all? I'll be in touch with you. Here's my business card. Shoot me the email. Do you have a business card I can get from you so we can keep in contact? And I can leave you or fill you in on that question. Again, knowing how to answer comes with practicing, knowing your research from forwards and backwards. So the more you present, the more practice you get, the better you're going to get at it. So again, use your friends, family, faculty member, and her staff and ambassadors. They're all there to help you. Other things to keep in mind, don't get defensive. People will sometimes get into your skin with the questions that they're asking, maybe come across as arrogant or try to bully you into thinking you don't know what you're talking about. They're not meaning to do that in most cases. They're just wanting more information about your research. So make sure that you don't let that get under your skin, get to you. Don't say, well, you didn't do this research. Why would you know? Or something like that. I mean, be professional. You want to kind of pull from the same vein that you would and the I don't know questions. Keep them in the same sort of attitude, as in support your research, support the things that you've concluded with information that you've discovered, facts that you have. So you don't want to just say you don't like my research because I'm from Texas Tech and you're from A&M. Just keep all these things in mind. Make sure that whenever you get those questions that you don't know how to answer, or those questions that may get under your skin, or any question really, you want to make sure that you clarify what it is that they're asking. This not only helps make sure that you're answering the right question, but gives you time to think about an answer if you're having difficulty. And make sure that you confirm that you answered their question afterwards. This is a really great way to make sure that you've covered all your bases, that you're not trying to skim over something and come across as ill-informed to your audience. So again, this kind of goes back to what I said at the very beginning. You want to make sure that your poster and you complement each other and balance out. You and your poster should work best when they're together. So again, don't want to put your entire research paper on your poster. You want to just put the main points, and then you can fill in the details for the people who are interested. All right, some other important resources you want to keep in mind are your faculty member and the CUR staff. Again, we're here to help you, so is your faculty member. Here are some links that I can send you in the mail, or email, and then you can get them off the flyer there. But these are great resources for giving presentations, how to build posters. I believe the University of Texas, on their poster samples, they'll have PDFs or Adobe sample files. I would just make sure to change the colors if you're going to use one of those templates. And Flickr is also a great tool to use for looking at examples, seeing what types of things work, what types of things don't, and those sorts of things. Flickr is not going to have the PowerPoint version of it, so whatever you find on Flickr that you decide that you want to use, you're going to have to build it from scratch. So that's just something to keep in mind. And these are some examples of some posters that we've had in the past with our scholars. And dark backgrounds are sometimes pretty difficult to work with, but she did a really good job with it. Switching her text to white, it's still easy to read. It's kind of a grainy picture, so you can't really tell that very well. But all of her text is outlined in boxes, keeping everything grouped together that is the same topic. Section titles are all sticking out from the main body text, so that helps, and the box kind of pulls everything together again. All the graphs are labeled, have arrows pointing to what they are. They're included in the same box with the text that is describing them. These are all good things to keep in mind. And then she even has acknowledgments down here in the corner for, I think that's the Center for Undergraduate Research, but just all the people that have helped her out. Do you want to talk about the chemistry tips now?
Yeah,
I just have a bunch of pictures now.
Okay. Do you mind if I go back to what I said about?
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah, just a couple things I've learned, I guess, through my experience. Going back to just like presenting and stuff like that. Because that's one of the things they do in grad school. We have to give seminars and stuff like that, and they always critique you on what to do better and how to present and how to appeal to your audience. One thing I noticed, they always tell you, practice makes perfect. Has everyone heard that? I kind of disagree with that. And one thing I would do when you practice this, you can do something over and over and over, but if you don't get feedback, you don't get results on what to do better, you're just going to practice it doing the same thing over and over. So it is important to practice, but you want to practice the right things. So it's always important to kind of go over this with someone else that you're close to. Have them sit in and do a presentation, and then they can kind of give you some feedback, and then you can try it again and adjust to try and make it better. So that's one thing to remember is not just practice, but practice the right things. The other thing I wanted to go over is kind of going back to the poster and everything else is I learned this process, and you can really apply it to anything, but it's called define, learn, do. So going back to knowing what conference you're going to, what the details are, you want to define, what am I going to say in this presentation? What is the main point that I want to get across? Define, on your posters, what are the right things I need to put on there that, size, the logos, all that kind of stuff. And you want to write all that stuff down before you really get into it, because if you don't learn what you need to do, what you need to present, how to make your poster right, you're going to go into it in the wrong direction. So you want to make sure you have the right information first, and then learn how to do it right. Obviously, you got some good tips from this presentation, and he gave you resources on how to keep looking into that. So go learn from your mentor. And I don't know about some of the other buildings, but I know in chemistry, they have posters all up and down the hallway. So just go browse through them sometime, look at ones, try and pick out what they did wrong maybe. If you can go try and critique others, you can learn how to pick up on what's good and what's not. What else do I want to say? So when you speak, I'm probably speaking too fast. I always tend to speak fast when I get up and talk. So one thing you can try and do is give a presentation and try and talk slow. So try and slow down, give your presentation. Usually when you talk, you'll talk quite a bit faster. So if you can get used to slowing things down, usually you can avoid that problem of speaking too fast and being done in like 5 minutes. There's something else I wanted to say. Okay, yeah, that's one of the other best things you should do is be excited. It's going back to, I'm sorry, I just had an example. You want to obviously be excited about what you're doing. You're going back, like I said earlier, you're trying to sell your research. You're trying to, I'm sorry, I totally lost my example. This is a perfect example of what not to do. So that's another good point, is remember what you wanted to say before you go up and talk. What I've noticed in presenting is that people do get nervous and over too excited, or they'll forget things, kind of like I just did. One thing that I would suggest, whenever you give a presentation, or whenever you're talking to an audience, you make the presentation, right? So you see what you write and what you want to convey to your audience, right? So if you ever mess something up, like maybe kind of like I just did, they don't know that you forgot that. So whenever, I've seen people do this before, when they're given a presentation, they'll forget, and they'll say, I guess a good example of what I just said, they'll say, oops, I forgot, I don't know. You can just not say that and keep going. It'll flow through the presentation a lot better, and they probably don't know that you wanted to say something and forgot it. Does that kind of make sense? So that's one thing to remember, is that you're the only one that knows what you're presenting. They're not going to be like, no, you forgot to talk about that. So just remember that. I think that's really about it. One thing too, obviously, whenever you're giving a presentation, you're going to have the screen here. You probably don't want to be right in the middle. So if you're ever presenting, if you want to point to something, that's fine. But don't stand here and talk and say, more tips, practice, practice, point to your items. Make sure you're not standing in the middle of your poster and be off to the side. I've just noticed people do that sometimes. They'll walk right in front of it. You can't see what you're presenting. So that's really about it. So the biggest thing I'd say would take away is just be excited, be enthusiastic. Try to convince them that your research is the greatest thing in the planet. Like, this is the next best thing. If you stand up there just really monotone and have no idea, they're going to say, great presentation. Okay, off to the next person. So try and be something different. Try and be something that is going to bring people to your research. I would say that's probably one of the most important things. So.
All right, I'm going to go through a few more pictures here just to show you kind of the designs that you can do with your poster. This is Alexander Mate. He's the one that was talking yesterday about his research. Like I said, he has to have this particular type of title on his poster from the engineering department. So that's just something to keep in mind and make sure you talk to your mentor about. Another good example, things are boxed in like they should be. They should be grouped together the same way so you know what each one's talking about. And this is kind of giving you an idea of how large some conferences can be. The NCUR conference will probably be slightly smaller than this, but they won't have you all in the same room like this. It'll be a bunch of smaller rooms, but there'll probably be about 1,000 plus people there, either attending throughout the week. So it's a great opportunity to network, see new graduate schools maybe that may be interested in attending, network with companies, other researchers doing similar work, those sorts of things. And this is a picture of our conference from last year. So we're kind of on the smaller side, but we present over 2 days. So this is, I guess, a quarter since we block it up into 2 presentation events on 2 separate days. So does anyone have any questions? We've covered completely everything you need to know, and you're not going to have to come in and ask us any questions, or you feel completely comfortable creating one.
Is it going to email us those template sites?
Yes, the links that I talked about were on the TLPDC and the University of Texas helpful guidelines. What was that? University guidelines. I think I said that one. William Miller Hall History Conference. Yes.
With all the like times on here, since it's like 8 to 5, are we just coming when we're presenting our poster, or like what's the time length of the whole conference?
So whenever you go online to submit your abstract,
Okay.
those has just kind of a general outline on the back. Each thing has a specific length and time that it takes place, so they're not all occurring at the same time, or it's not really dynamic in a sense. We got poster presentations, and I think it's 2:30 to like maybe 3, or sorry, 2:30 to maybe 4, something like that. And you'll just be required to present during the time that you're assigned. I believe all the other events are optional unless you RSVP for them. Is that right? Sorry, we're talking about TTU Undergraduate Research Conference. The only thing you have to be there for is RSVP events and poster presentations. Yes.
For the poster presentations are, it's Tuesday from 9 to 11, I believe, and Wednesday from 1 to 4
Okay.
for the presentation, because you asked when. Now, my question is, what if you have classes during those times?
In those 2 times,
Yeah.
you probably need to talk with one of us then.
Talk to your professors ahead of time, let them know what you're presenting, and if they have questions, they can see us.
As far as the abstracts we're turning in, please, if they change after that, is that a big deal? Like, what are those being used for?
So the purpose of your abstract is it will be in the abstract book, and then judges or whoever comes to the conference will pick up an abstract book, and they can look through and see, oh, this person's doing research over analytical chemistry and a brief overview of what their research entails. Abstracts in general are pretty vague in a sense, vague scientifically speaking.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, what types of research that you're doing, what you're looking into, maybe a general idea of what you wind up getting into, but you don't want to be very specific in your abstract because research tends to drift one way or the other while you're doing it, and you don't want to submit an abstract over something that you wind up not getting to do research, finishing research in. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're writing your abstract. So try to keep in mind all your possibilities whenever you write your abstract without being too vague. And that's what you'll submit. Does that help answer your question? Okay. Any more questions? Comments? All right. We have, Jess was nice enough to bring some of his past posters and some other posters. So you're more than welcome to come up and look at those, see, some good examples, and I think possibly one bad example. So feel free to